The last shaker of martinis splashed into elegant glasses as Riley Anderson surveyed the glittering yacht party from behind the portable bar. Polished mahogany gleamed under string lights, champagne flowed like water, and Miami's skyline twinkled against the darkening horizon, another Friday night playground for the obscenely wealthy. This wasn't her usual gig, but when her roommate's catering company needed an emergency bartender for some finance guy's birthday, the promise of ridiculous tips had been too tempting to pass up. Another gin and tonic. Riley asked a middle-aged woman draped in diamonds, receiving a dismissive nod in return. These people rarely made eye contact with service staff. That was fine by her. She wasn't here to make friends, she was here to fund her real passion. Riley tucked a strand of auburn hair behind her ear and adjusted her white dress shirt, grateful for the sea breeze that cooled the Florida summer night. Between shaking and pouring drinks, she discreetly checked the time on her watch. 6 more hours of pretending to care about hedge fund strategies and vacation homes before she could go home to her tiny apartment and her half-finished paintings. At the opposite end of the deck stood a man who seemed as out of place as she felt. Tall, broad-shouldered, in an impeccably tailored navy suit that somehow looked both expensive and uncomfortable on him. Unlike the other guests who flitted between conversation circles with practiced charm, he stood alone at the railing, nursing what looked like plain water. No designer watch flashing, no performative laughter, just quiet observation of the ocean stretching into darkness. Their eyes met briefly across the deck. Riley quickly looked away, returning to her citrus garnishes. Not her business who the quiet guy was. Probably some friend's boring cousin they'd felt obligated to invite. Riley, Jason, the birthday boy and host, swooped toward the bar, arms wide, already several drinks past sobriety. "My favorite bartender. My guests are raving about your mojitos." "Thanks," she replied with her practiced hospitality smile. "Happy birthday, by the way." Jason leaned closer, his expensive cologne almost overwhelming. "Listen, there's someone I want you to meet." "My friend over there," he gestured vaguely toward the quiet man she'd noticed earlier. "Hasn't taken his eyes off you all night." "I'm working, Jason," Riley reminded him, popping open another bottle of champagne. "He owns like half the eastern seaboard," Jason continued, undeterred. "Hunter Iverson, Iverson Medical Supplies. Surely you've heard of him." The name did sound vaguely familiar, maybe from some business magazine cover at the doctor's office. "Not really my crowd," she replied, arranging fresh glasses on her tray. Jason laughed too loudly. "That's what I love about you, Riley, so refreshingly normal." He swayed slightly. "Just, be extra nice to him. He's kind of a big deal." As Jason stumbled back toward his other guests, Riley couldn't help glancing again at the quiet man Hunter Iverson, apparently. This time, he was looking directly at her and made no attempt to pretend otherwise when caught. He raised his water glass in the smallest acknowledgement possible. For some inexplicable reason, Riley felt her cheeks warm. She turned back to her cocktails, annoyed at herself. She'd served celebrities, politicians, and countless wealthy patrons without batting an eye. What was it about this particular quiet, intense man that had thrown her off balance? An hour later, the party was in full swing. The yacht's sound system blasted the latest chart toppers while tipsy guests attempted dancing on the gently rocking deck. Riley had hit her stride, mixing complicated orders with practiced efficiency while maintaining the perfect level of friendly but not too friendly conversation. "Excuse me." The deep voice cut through the surrounding noise with quiet authority. Riley looked up to find Hunter Iverson standing directly across the bar from her. Up close, she noticed details she'd missed from afar. Sharp hazel eyes that seemed to evaluate everything they landed on, a strong jawline with just enough stubble to suggest he hadn't had time to shave, and a subtle scar near his right temple that disappeared into his dark brown hair. "What can I get you?" Riley asked, reaching for a glass. "Just water, please, with lime if you have it." Riley raised an eyebrow. "You know it's an open bar, right? All paid for." A slight smile curved the corner of his mouth. "I'm aware, I don't drink." "Bold choice for a yacht party," she commented, slicing a fresh lime wedge and dropping it into a glass of ice water. He accepted the glass with a nod. "I find I make better decisions with a clear head." "And what kind of decisions do you make, Mr. Iverson?" Riley asked before she could stop herself. It was exactly the kind of personal question she avoided asking patrons, but something about his calm demeanor invited conversation. If he was surprised she knew his name, he didn't show it. "The kind that affect thousands of people's lives," he answered simply. "No bravado, just statement of fact. And you're Riley, I'm told." "That's what my name tag says," she replied, tapping the plastic pin to her shirt. "You don't seem particularly impressed to be serving Miami's elite," he observed, taking a sip of his water. Riley shrugged. "I've learned that money doesn't necessarily make people more interesting. Sometimes the opposite." Instead of looking offended, Hunter laughed a genuine sound that transformed his serious face completely. "I couldn't agree more." A woman in a sequined dress approached the bar, and Riley turned away to take her order. When she looked back, Hunter had disappeared. She ignored the twinge of disappointment that followed. The night progressed in a blur of cocktails and mindless small talk. Occasionally, Riley caught glimpses of Hunter engaged in what appeared to be reluctant conversations with other guests, his body language suggesting he'd rather be anywhere else. Several times, she felt his eyes on her, but whenever she looked his way, he was focused elsewhere. Around midnight, the crowd thinned as some guests departed on smaller boats back to the marina. Riley began cleaning her station, calculating the healthy tips she'd accumulated. "Need any help?" She jumped slightly. Hunter had returned, standing beside the bar rather than in front of it this time. "I think I can handle stacking empty glasses," Riley said. "But thanks for the offer. Most guests don't even see the cleanup happening." "I'm not most guests," he said simply, "so I've gathered." Riley continued wiping down the bar. "Jason mentioned you're some kind of medical supplies big shot." Hunter leaned against the railing, looking oddly relaxed now that most of the crowd had dispersed. "That's a simplified version, yes. Iverson Medical develops and manufactures specialized equipment for hospitals worldwide." "Sounds important," Riley said, genuinely impressed despite herself. "It can be. What about you? Is bartending your passion or just paying the bills?" Riley hesitated. Most wealthy clients didn't care about her life story. "Paying the bills. I'm an artist or trying to be. I have a showing at a small gallery next month." Interest flickered in his eyes. "What medium?" "Mixed media, mostly. Some oils." She narrowed her eyes suspiciously. "Do you actually know anything about art, or are you just being polite?" The question seemed to amuse him. "My mother was an art professor at Columbia. I grew up surrounded by discussions about brushwork and composition. I have an entire wing in my house dedicated to supporting emerging artists." "Of course you do," Riley muttered, feeling slightly embarrassed by her assumption. Before Hunter could respond, Jason stumbled over, draping an arm around his shoulders. "There you are, been looking everywhere. Some of us are continuing the party at Eclipse. Coming." Hunter gently extracted himself from Jason's grasp. "I should head back. Early meeting tomorrow." "Always working," Jason slurred, turning to Riley. This guy built a multi-billion-dollar company from scratch, and he still shows up first to the office." "Insane, right?" Riley's eyes widened slightly. Billion with a B hadn't been mentioned earlier. Jason, Hunter warned quietly. What? She should know who she's talking to, Jason protested, then Stage whispered to Riley. He donated an entire children's hospital wing last year, wouldn't even let them name it after him. Hunter's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I think your other guests are waiting, Jason. Taking the hint, Jason clapped Hunter on the back once more before weaving his way toward the remaining partygoers. An awkward silence fell between them. So, a children's hospital wing, Riley said finally, unable to resist. Hunter sighed. My sister had leukemia when we were kids. The hospital saved her life. He stated this without elaboration, as though that explained everything which, Riley supposed it did. She studied him with new interest. You're not what I expected. From a CEO, from Jason's crowd, she clarified. They tend to be more ostentatious. Hunter supplied. Riley smiled. That's a polite way of putting it. For a moment, they just looked at each other, the sounds of the party fading into the background. Something electric and undefined passed between them, recognition, perhaps, of finding something unexpectedly genuine in a world of carefully constructed appearances. Hunter broke the silence first. I should let you finish your work. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, placing it on the bar. If you ever want a private tour of that art wing I mentioned. Riley picked up the card, running her thumb over the embossed lettering. Is this how billionaires typically ask for dates? Very smooth. The smile that spread across his face transformed him again, revealing perfectly straight teeth and unexpected dimples. There's nothing typical about this conversation, Riley. He took a step back. Good luck with your gallery showing. With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Riley holding his card and wondering what exactly had just happened. She slipped the card into her pocket, telling herself she probably wouldn't call. Men like Hunter Iverson lived in a different world than struggling artists who moonlighted as bartenders. Still, as she finished cleaning up and the yacht docked back at the marina, she couldn't stop her fingers from occasionally touching the card through the fabric of her pants, like a talisman of possibilities she hadn't considered before tonight. 3 days later, Riley stood in her tiny studio apartment, surrounded by canvases in various stages of completion. Late afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating specks of dust and paint particles floating in the air. She'd been staring at the same canvas for hours, trying to capture the particular way moonlight had reflected on the ocean during the yacht party. The business card sat on her windowsill, taunting her. She'd taken it out of her pocket that night, intending to toss it in her junk drawer and forget about it. Instead, she'd propped it up where she could see it while she painted. Her phone buzzed with a text from her roommate, Mia. How was the yacht gig? Meet any millionaires who want to be your sugar daddy. Riley rolled her eyes and typed back. Billionaire, actually, and no. The phone immediately rang. Riley answered with a sigh. I was joking. No, you weren't, Mia squealed. Spill everything immediately. Riley tucked the phone between her shoulder and ear while washing paint from her brushes. There's nothing to spill, just some quiet guy who owns a medical company. He gave me his card. And nothing. I'm not going to call him. Riley Anderson, you are the most frustrating person I know, Mia groaned. Why not? Riley hesitated. Because men like that don't seriously date women like me. Best case scenario, I'd be some artistic diversion until he gets bored. Or maybe he genuinely liked you because you're smart, talented, and didn't fawn all over him like everyone else probably does, Mia countered. Silence fell as Riley considered this possibility. You're overthinking this, Mia continued. Just call him. What's the worst that could happen? crushing rejection and awkwardness, or the best art patron you could ever hope for, Mia pointed out. Even if nothing romantic happens, connections with wealthy people who appreciate art are literally gold for someone in your position. Riley glanced at her upcoming gallery showing calendar. The truth was, she needed all the support she could get. If nothing else, maybe Hunter Iverson would bring friends to the showing who might actually purchase something. "I'll think about it," she promised Mia before hanging up. After another hour of unsuccessful painting, Riley finally picked up the card. "Hunter Iverson, CEO, Iverson Medical Supplies," she read aloud. Simple, elegant, with just a phone number and email address. No flashy titles or unnecessary information. Before she could talk herself out of it, she dialed the number, expecting to reach a secretary or automated system. "Hunter Iverson," came the immediate answer in that same deep voice she remembered. Riley froze momentarily. Hi. This is Riley Anderson, from the yacht party." "I was the bartender." A pause. "I remember exactly who you are, Riley." Something about the way he said her name made her heart beat faster. "I was surprised you gave me your direct number," she said. "I was hoping you'd use it." His voice had warmed considerably. "I wasn't sure you would." "Neither was I," Riley admitted. "But I was thinking about your offer to see your art collection. Are you free tomorrow evening?" Hunter asked without hesitation. The suddenness caught Riley off guard. "Tomorrow, yes, actually." "I'll send a car for you at 7. Text me your address." "I can drive myself," Riley said quickly, not wanting to feel more out of her depth than she already did. Hunter paused. "Of course. I'll text you the address." After exchanging a few more details, Riley hung up, her stomach fluttering with anticipation and doubt. What was she getting herself into? The next evening, Riley parked her beat-up Honda Civic in the circular driveway of what could only be described as a modern mansion. Perched on a cliff overlooking Biscayne Bay, the glass and steel structure seemed to float above the water, illuminated against the twilight sky. She suddenly regretted not taking him up on the offer of a car service. Her faithful but ancient vehicle looked painfully out of place among the manicured grounds. Smoothing down her emerald green dress, the nicest thing she owned, Riley approached the front door, expecting a butler or housekeeper to answer. Instead, Hunter himself opened it, dressed more casually than she'd seen him on the yacht, in dark jeans and a light blue button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows. His eyes traveled briefly over her before meeting her gaze. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "Thank you," Riley replied, hoping the encroaching darkness hid her blush. "Your home is impressive." Hunter stepped back to let her enter. "It's too big for one person," he said matter-of-factly, "but the light is perfect for displaying art." The entryway opened into a vast living area with soaring ceilings and walls of glass that showcased the ocean view. Tasteful modern furniture in neutral tones grounded the space, but what immediately caught Riley's attention were the paintings and sculptures thoughtfully arranged throughout. "This way," Hunter gestured, leading her down a hallway. "The main collection is housed in the East Wing." "Do you actually say things like East Wing in casual conversation?" Riley teased, trying to mask her nervousness. Hunter glanced back at her with amusement. "Only when it's architecturally accurate. Would you prefer the rooms over there?" "Much better," Riley nodded solemnly, and was rewarded with another of those genuine smiles that transformed his face. When they reached the East Wing, Hunter opened double doors to reveal a gallery space that rivaled many professional installations Riley had visited. Track lighting illuminated paintings of various sizes and styles, while pedestals displayed sculptures and mixed-media pieces. The far wall was entirely glass, offering a view of the ocean and Miami skyline in the distance. "Hunter, this is." Riley trailed off, momentarily speechless. "How many pieces do you have?" "About 200 in the active collection," he replied, watching her reaction carefully. "I rotate them seasonally and loan some to museums." Riley moved slowly around the room, examining each piece with the trained eye of an artist. "These aren't just investments," she observed. "These were chosen with genuine appreciation." "I don't collect art as a financial strategy," Hunter confirmed, keeping a respectful distance as she explored. "My mother taught me to buy what moves me, not what might appreciate in value." Riley stopped in front of a large abstract canvas, recognizing the artist's style immediately. "This is a Camilla Reeves original. She's one of my biggest influences." "I know," Hunter said quietly. Riley turned to him, surprised. "How could you know that?" He looked slightly embarrassed. "I may have looked up your work online after we met." "Your use of texture and negative space reminded me of her early pieces." The realization that he'd researched her work and understood it well enough to make such a comparison left Riley momentarily stunned. "Would you like a glass of wine?" Hunter asked, gesturing toward a small seating area in the corner of the gallery. "Or I have sparkling water if you prefer." "Wine would be nice," Riley said, following him to where a bottle was already breathing. As Hunter poured 2 glasses, Riley noticed something she'd missed initially: a small painting hung slightly apart from the others, in a position that caught the best natural light. The style was unmistakable. "That's one of mine," she said, astonishment coloring her voice. She approached the painting, a piece she'd sold at a small community art fair nearly a year ago, depicting a woman sitting alone in a crowded cafe. The world around her rendered in blurs while she remained in sharp focus. Hunter handed her a glass of wine, his expression unreadable. "I bought it last December." Riley stared at him. "That was before the yacht party." "Yes, you knew who I was when we met," she realized, pieces falling into place. Hunter took a sip of his wine before answering. "I saw your work at the Miami Arts Collective showcase. When Jason mentioned he needed an additional bartender for his party, and your name came up through the catering company." He shrugged slightly. "I was curious about the artist behind the work." "So you arranged for me to be there?" Riley asked, unsure whether to be flattered or unsettled. Hunter shook his head quickly. "No, nothing like that. It was genuine coincidence that you were assigned to that event. I just recognized your name when Jason mentioned it." Riley studied him, searching for any sign of deception but finding only earnest intensity. "That's either the most flattering thing I've ever heard or slightly creepy," she said finally. That earned another laugh from him. "I'm hoping for the former, but I understand why you might lean toward the latter." He gestured to a nearby couch. "Shall we sit?" "I promise my interest in your art is genuine, even if my introduction was unconventional." Over the next hour, they sat talking about art, their backgrounds, and how they'd each found their respective paths. Hunter described growing up with a single mother who balanced teaching art history with raising 2 children, and how his sister's illness had inspired him to focus on medical innovations after college. "I started with one patented device for more accurate medication dosing in pediatric patients," he explained. "I never intended to build an empire. I just kept seeing problems that needed solving." "And now?" Riley asked, genuinely interested. "Now I have 5,000 employees and spend too much time in meetings," he said with a wry smile. "But our equipment helps save lives every day, so the trade-off feels worthwhile." In turn, Riley told him about discovering art as an escape during a difficult childhood, her scholarship to art school, and the constant struggle to balance creative integrity with financial survival. Hence the bartending, Hunter nodded understandingly. And waitressing, dog walking, grocery delivery, whatever fits around studio time, Riley confirmed. The showing next month is my first real opportunity with a gallery that matters, if it goes well. It will, Hunter said with such conviction that Riley almost believed him. As the evening progressed, they moved from the gallery to the kitchen, where Hunter surprised her by cooking dinner himself, a simple but delicious pasta dish with fresh seafood. No personal chef, Riley teased as she watched him expertly chop herbs. I have a housekeeper who comes during the week and a chef for when I entertain, Hunter explained. But I enjoy cooking when I have the time. It's meditative. Riley leaned against the counter, wine glass in hand, struck by the contradiction of this powerful CEO chopping garlic in a kitchen larger than her entire apartment. You're not what I expected, she said, echoing her words from the yacht. Hunter looked up, his hands pausing. What did you expect? Someone more entitled, she admitted. Less normal. I've been fortunate, Hunter said thoughtfully, resuming his preparation. But I grew up solidly middle class. My mother made sure my sister and I understood the value of hard work and humility. He glanced at her. Money changes your circumstances, not who you are at core. Riley considered this as they ate dinner on the terrace overlooking the water, the Miami skyline glittering in the distance. The conversation flowed effortlessly, touching on books, travel, and shared dislike of pretentious art critics. Hunter listened to her opinions with genuine interest, challenging her thoughtfully when they disagreed. When the evening finally drew to a close, Hunter walked her to her car. Thank you for coming, he said, standing closer than strictly necessary in the warm night air. I'd like to see you again. Riley looked up at him, surprised by how much she wanted the same thing. I'd like that too. For a moment she thought he might kiss her. Instead, he took her hand and pressed his lips gently to her knuckles, the gesture somehow both old-fashioned and electric. Your gallery showing, he said, still holding her hand. Would you mind if I attended? Riley smiled. I'd be disappointed if you didn't. As she drove home, Riley tried to process everything that had happened. One evening with Hunter Iverson had challenged every preconception she'd held about wealthy businessmen. His passion for art, his unpretentious nature, his genuine interest in her work and thoughts, it all seemed too good to be true. Yet as her phone chimed with a text message from him, "Thank you for a wonderful evening. Sleep well, Riley." She couldn't help the smile that spread across her face. Maybe, just maybe, there was something real developing between them. Over the next 3 weeks, Hunter and Riley's relationship evolved with surprising speed and intensity. They met for dinners at hole-in-the-wall restaurants Riley loved, spent afternoons wandering through art galleries, and shared quiet evenings at his home, talking until the early hours of the morning. Hunter showed up at her tiny apartment studio one Saturday afternoon with coffee and pastries, genuinely interested in watching her work. Instead of finding the cramped space disappointing after his mansion, he seemed fascinated by her creative process, asking thoughtful questions and observing with quiet intensity as she layered paint and mixed media elements. "You're staring," Riley said without looking up from her canvas, hyper-aware of his presence on the worn couch behind her. "I'm appreciating," Hunter corrected. "There's something magical about watching creativity in action." Riley turned to face him, paintbrush still in hand. "Most people find it boring." "I'm not most people," he reminded her, echoing their conversation from the yacht. "And nothing about you could ever be boring, Riley." The way he looked at her like she was the most fascinating person he'd ever encountered made her heart race. Despite her initial reservations, she was falling for him, and falling hard. What surprised her most was how normal it felt to be with him. When they were alone, the fact that he ran a billion-dollar company seemed almost irrelevant. He was just Hunter, thoughtful, intelligent, occasionally stubborn, with a dry sense of humor that matched her own. But reality had ways of intruding. Once, while they were having lunch at a seaside cafe, 3 different business people approached their table to try to get just 5 minutes of Hunter's time. Another afternoon, paparazzi photos of them walking on the beach appeared on a local gossip website with the headline "Iverson's New Artistic Muse." Hunter had apologized profusely, clearly uncomfortable with the invasion of privacy. "This is part of your world, isn't it?" Riley had asked. "A part I've never enjoyed," he admitted. "Does it bother you?" Riley considered the question seriously. "I don't love the idea of strangers photographing me, but I understand it comes with who you are." Hunter had taken her hand then, his expression solemn. "Who I am is someone who's falling in love with you, Riley. The rest is just circumstance." The declaration had caught them both by surprise, but neither tried to take it back. Instead, their relationship deepened, each day bringing them closer as they discovered the countless ways they complemented each other. As her gallery showing approached, Riley worked increasingly long hours in her studio, determined to perfect every piece. Hunter respected her need for space, but made sure she remembered to eat, occasionally showing up with takeout when she'd been working for too many hours straight. "You don't have to take care of me," Riley protested one evening when he arrived with Thai food after she'd missed their dinner plans. "I want to," Hunter said simply, setting out containers on her paint-splattered table. "Besides, I'm being entirely selfish. The world needs your art and you can't create if you're malnourished." Riley laughed, setting down her palette. "Very strategic of you, Mr. CEO." "I do have some skills," he agreed with mock seriousness. As they ate, Riley noticed Hunter seemed distracted, checking his phone more frequently than usual. "Everything okay?" she asked. Hunter hesitated before answering. "We're finalizing a major hospital contract in London. It's been complicated." "Do you need to go?" Riley asked, understanding the demands of his position. "No," Hunter said firmly. "The team can handle it. I'm where I need to be." The warmth that spread through Riley at his words was becoming familiar, this feeling that somehow, against all odds, she'd found someone who valued her exactly as she was. The night of the gallery showing arrived with perfect Miami, weather warm with a gentle breeze that carried the scent of the ocean. Riley arrived early to help with final preparations, her stomach in knots. "Everything looks incredible," the gallery owner assured her, adjusting the lighting on one of her larger pieces. "Several critics from major publications have confirmed attendance." Riley nodded, too nervous to speak. This showing represented years of work and sacrifice. If it went well, it could launch her career to a new level. If it failed, the gallery began filling with attendees, art collectors, critics, fellow artists, and curious Miami art scene regulars. Riley circulated as expected, explaining her techniques and inspiration when asked, accepting both praise and critical feedback with grace. She kept glancing toward the entrance, looking for Hunter. He'd texted earlier that he might be slightly late due to an emergency video conference, but promised he'd be there. As the evening progressed with no sign of him, Riley tried to ignore the disappointment growing in her chest. "The use of negative space here is particularly compelling," a well-known critic was saying, gesturing toward one of her favorite pieces, when a ripple of interest moved through the crowd. Riley turned to see Hunter entering the gallery, looking slightly harried but devastatingly handsome in a charcoal suit. What caught her attention, however, Was the group of people with him at least 10 elegantly dressed individuals who immediately spread throughout the space, studying her work with focused interest. "Excuse me," Riley murmured to the critic, making her way toward Hunter. He spotted her, and his face transformed with that smile that still made her pulse quicken. "I'm so sorry I'm late," he said, pulling her into a brief embrace. "The London situation exploded, and then traffic was terrible." "It's okay," Riley assured him, genuinely relieved he'd made it. "Who are all these people?" Hunter glanced at the group he'd arrived with. "Some friends and colleagues who appreciate art. I hope you don't mind that I invited them." Before Riley could respond, the gallery owner approached, practically vibrating with excitement. "Miss Anderson, 3 of your pieces have just sold. Full asking price, no negotiation." Riley blinked in surprise. "Which ones?" "The ocean triptych, the large abstract, and the mixed media urban landscape," the owner replied. "All to different buyers." Riley's gaze shifted to the friends and colleagues Hunter had brought, who were now engaged in serious conversations with the gallery staff, checkbooks in hand. "Did you tell them to buy my work?" she asked Hunter quietly, conflicted emotions battling within her. Hunter looked genuinely offended by the suggestion. "Absolutely not. I invited people who genuinely appreciate art and have the means to collect it. What they choose to purchase is entirely their decision." He held her gaze steadily. "I would never undermine your talent that way, Riley." She studied his face, finding only sincerity. "I'm sorry, that was unfair of me." "It was a reasonable question," Hunter conceded, "but your work sells itself. I just made sure the right people saw it." By the end of the evening, 7 pieces had sold, a resounding success for an emerging artist's first significant showing. As the gallery emptied and staff began cleaning up, Riley found herself standing beside Hunter in front of her favorite piece, the only one she'd secretly hoped wouldn't sell, because of her personal attachment to it. "This one speaks to me," Hunter said, studying the canvas that depicted a solitary figure standing at a crossroads, surrounded by abstract representations of different possible futures. "It's about choices," Riley explained. "How each decision opens some doors and closes others." Hunter turned to face her, suddenly serious. "I have something to tell you." Riley's stomach tightened. "That sounds ominous." "The London contract is finalized," he said. "It's the biggest deal in the company's history, bringing our pediatric equipment to every major hospital in the UK. "That's wonderful," Riley said, genuinely happy for his success but uncertain why he looked so conflicted. "I need to be there for the implementation," Hunter continued. "At least 6 months of splitting my time between London and Miami," understanding dawned. "Oh. I fly out next week for the initial meetings," he said, watching her carefully. "And I want you to come with me." Riley stared at him. "To London? For 6 months? Hunter, I can't just—" "Not for the whole time," he clarified quickly. "For a week initially, to see if you like it. London has an incredible art scene. You could work from there as easily as here. We could find you studio space." "My life is here," Riley said, trying to process the suggestion. "My connections, my community." "I know," Hunter acknowledged, "and I'm not asking you to abandon that. I'm asking if you'd consider building something with me that spans both places." He took her hands in his. "These past weeks have shown me what's truly important, Riley, and that's you." The intensity in his eyes took her breath away. "This is happening so fast," she whispered. "Sometimes you just know," Hunter said simply. "I knew the first night on that yacht that you were different, special." Riley hesitated, a lifetime of practical caution warring with the undeniable connection they'd formed. "What if it doesn't work? What if we realize we're too different after all?" "Then we'll face that together," Hunter promised. "But I don't think that's going to happen." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Riley's eyes widened. "Hunter, it's not a ring," he said with a gentle smile. "Not yet, anyway." He opened the box to reveal a delicate silver key. "This is to my London flat," he explained. "A place of your own while you're there, whether I'm in London or not. No pressure, no expectations. Just a door that's always open to you." Riley looked from the key to Hunter's hopeful expression. It was a perfect gesture, offering her both connection and independence, acknowledging her need for autonomy while inviting her into his world. "1 week," she said finally. "To start." Hunter's smile could have lit up the entire gallery. "1 week," he agreed, before pulling her close and kissing her with such tenderness that Riley felt tears spring to her eyes. Later that night, as they walked along the moonlit beach near Hunter's home, Riley reflected on the whirlwind her life had become since that yacht party just weeks ago. From struggling artist to successful gallery showing, from solitary existence to falling in love with a man who seemed to understand her better than anyone ever had. "What are you thinking?" Hunter asked, their fingers intertwined as waves lapped at their bare feet. "That I never expected any of this," Riley admitted. "You, the success tonight, London, it feels like someone else's life." Hunter stopped walking to face her. "Is that good or bad?" Riley considered the question seriously. "Good," she decided. "Scary, but good." "I feel the same way," Hunter confessed. "I've built a company, achieved more financial success than I ever imagined, but nothing has ever felt as important as this is us." A comfortable silence fell between them as they continued walking, the Miami skyline glittering in the distance. "There is one condition to me coming to London," Riley said after a while. Hunter looked at her questioningly. "You have to promise to show me all the best hidden art galleries," she said with a smile. "Not just the famous museums." Hunter laughed, pulling her close. "I promise," he said, sealing the vow with a kiss as the ocean waves crashed around their ankles, washing away the boundary lines they'd both lived within for so long. 6 months later, Riley stood in the center of a London gallery, watching as the final pieces of her new collection were hung for her first international showing. The space was smaller than the Miami gallery, but located in a prestigious area of East London, known for launching significant artistic careers. "What do you think?" asked the gallery owner, a formidable woman with impeccable taste who had taken an immediate interest in Riley's work. "It's perfect," Riley replied, amazed at how far she'd come since that first week in London had stretched into a month, then 3, and finally a semi-permanent arrangement with frequent trips back to Miami. Hunter had kept every promise, giving her the space and independence she needed while supporting her career in meaningful ways, making introductions, but never interfering, celebrating her successes, but never taking credit for them. They'd established a rhythm that worked for them both. When Hunter traveled for business, Riley sometimes accompanied him, finding inspiration in new cities and cultures. Other times, she remained in either London or Miami, focused on her work, knowing he would return to her with the same devotion he'd shown from the beginning. The London art scene had embraced her distinctive American perspective, while her connections to Miami kept her grounded in her roots. She now had gallery representation in both cities, and her work had begun attracting attention from collectors across Europe. As for Hunter, the London expansion had been even more successful than projected, saving the British healthcare system millions while improving patient outcomes. His willingness to be personally involved in the implementation had earned respect from medical professionals and administrators alike. But more importantly, the time in London had given them space to build something real together, a relationship based on mutual respect, shared values, and genuine love that transcended their different backgrounds and lifestyles. "There you are," Hunter's voice called from the gallery entrance. He crossed the room to join her, stopping to admire the nearly complete installation. "It looks amazing, Riley." "Thank you," she said, leaning into him as his arm wrapped around her waist. "For everything." Hunter pressed a kiss to her temple. "I was just the lucky guy who happened to be at the right yacht party," Riley laughed. "I still can't believe I didn't recognize you. Mia nearly had a heart attack when she realized who you were." "I like that you didn't know," Hunter admitted. "It meant your reaction to me was genuine, not influenced by your billions," Riley teased, still finding it slightly surreal to be in love with someone Forbes magazine regularly featured. "Something like that," Hunter agreed with a smile. "Are we still on for dinner tonight?" "I made reservations at that place you loved in Notting Hill." Riley nodded, suddenly nervous about the evening ahead. She had news to share. A major museum had expressed interest in acquiring one of her pieces for their permanent collection, a landmark achievement for any artist. "Actually," Hunter said, checking his watch, "we should probably head out soon. I have something I want to show you before dinner." Riley raised an eyebrow. "More art." "Something better," Hunter promised mysteriously. An hour later, their car pulled up to a beautiful old building overlooking one of London's many parks. Hunter led her inside and up several flights of stairs, finally stopping before a door on the top floor. "What is this place?" Riley asked, confused. Hunter reached into his pocket and pulled out a key not unlike the one he'd given her 6 months earlier. "See for yourself," he said, handing it to her. Curiously, Riley unlocked the door and stepped inside. The space that greeted her took her breath away, an expansive loft with soaring ceilings, massive windows flooding the room with natural light, and an open floor plan that would make a perfect studio. One end of the loft had been furnished as a comfortable living area, while the other remained deliberately empty, filled only with potential. "Hunter," she breathed, turning in a slow circle. "What is this?" "It could be ours," he said, watching her reaction carefully. "A place that's truly ours, not just my house or your apartment. Somewhere designed for both of our needs." Riley walked to the windows, taking in the view of London stretched before her. "It's incredible." "There's one more thing," Hunter said, coming to stand beside her. When she turned to face him, he was down on one knee, holding a small box. Riley's hands flew to her mouth. "Riley Anderson," Hunter began, his voice steady despite the emotion visible in his eyes. "From the moment you questioned my drink choice on that yacht, I knew you were someone special. Someone who would see me, not my success or status. Someone who would challenge me, inspire me, and make every day brighter just by being in it." He opened the box to reveal a stunning yet understated ring, a single perfect diamond in a vintage setting that somehow captured both elegance and artistic uniqueness. "I love your creativity, your independence, your kindness, and even your stubbornness," Hunter continued with a smile. "I love the way you see the world and translate it through your art. I love who I am when I'm with you." Riley felt tears slipping down her cheeks as Hunter took her hand. "I don't want just a week or 6 months or even years," he said. "I want a lifetime. Will you marry me, Riley?" The answer came without hesitation, as natural and inevitable as the tide returning to shore. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes." Hunter slipped the ring onto her finger before rising to his feet and pulling her into a kiss that held all the promise of their shared future, one they would build together, bridging their different worlds into something entirely new. Later that evening, as they celebrated over dinner, Riley finally shared her museum news. Hunter's pride and excitement matched her own, his support as unwavering as it had been from the beginning. "To new beginnings," Hunter proposed, raising his glass of champagne. "And unexpected yacht parties," Riley added with a smile, clinking her glass against his. As they looked at each other across the table, both recognized how far they had come from that first meeting the bartender and the quiet CEO, each making assumptions that had proven beautifully wrong. Their different backgrounds had not been obstacles, but complementary pieces of the life they were creating together, each bringing unique perspectives and strengths to their relationship. 1 year later, they married in a small ceremony on the beach near Miami, with just close friends and family in attendance. Riley wore a simple but elegant dress she had helped design, while Hunter looked at her with the same quiet intensity he'd shown that first night on the yacht, like she was the most fascinating, beautiful person he'd ever encountered. The reception was held on a yacht, a nostalgic nod to their first meeting, but this time, Riley wasn't behind the bar. Instead, she and Hunter moved among their guests as equals, their hands frequently finding each other as if drawn by magnetic force. "Happy," Hunter whispered during a quiet moment as they stood at the railing, watching the Miami skyline glitter against the night sky. Riley leaned into his embrace, the diamond on her finger catching the light. "More than I ever thought possible," she answered truthfully. Hunter pressed a kiss to her temple. "This is just the beginning," he promised. And as the yacht cruised gently through the water, Riley knew with absolute certainty that he was right. What had started as an unlikely encounter between two people from different worlds had blossomed into something rare and precious, a love built on mutual respect, shared dreams, and the courage to step beyond the boundaries of their separate lives into a future they would create together, one brushstroke at a time.